being the 26.9 billion rand, with then and I think it's important that in 2017-18, what Eskom met the demand requirement. We did not load shedding that year, unlike the previous RCAs. In terms of the costs, you will see that on the coal component, there's a reduction, effectively a refund to the consumer of 2.9 billion. Your OCGTs are 1.4 billion less. Your IPP is 1.7 billion less. And then with the lower production on the coal side, you have the environmental levy reducing by 1.7 billion. Overall, from a primary energy perspective, Chairperson, is a reduction of about 4.4 billion. Following last year's process on the RCA, we also accounted for the energy conservation scheme volumes and the impact of that of 1.1 billion, and then the demand side 4.2 billion. Last year's process on the RCA, we also accounted for bottom line energy conservation scheme 1.6 billion, and the impact of that of 1.1 billion. In terms of approach, we maintain the ratio, we also accounted for bottom line consolidation training around 6 billion.
What we're asking is similar to what was happening in the 2019 year. We were allowed to revise the numbers and use the latest projections. That kind of addresses the challenge in terms of the lag between starting with the forecast and the submissions. So we did provide the revised numbers in Rustenburg, and there is a slight drop in terms of volume of about 3.6 terawatts that we're projecting for year end. That's out of a total of about 210, 212 terawatt hours. Also, in light of what we're saying in the robustness of the process, we would welcome Nersa and afford them the opportunity to also do their own verification, similar to what they did with the 18-19 single year application, where they applied some statistical modeling, and our process was found to be sound. There was a good fit between their process, verification process, and our numbers. So if Nersa does take that route, then whatever the decision is, it will form reference of future RCA process. We also are seeing that in terms of the RCA methodology, that provision be made for us to review those numbers on an annual basis, because the market is very volatile. So even though we say the process is robust, what is going to happen next year, it's relatively fluid. So we're saying that on a regular annual basis, we must be given an opportunity to revise those numbers to reflect the latest projection. Now, if you look at the standard tariff volumes over the past 10 years, what we're showing here is that from our observation and our analysis, we don't see a direct correlation between the tariff adjustments and the volumes. If you look at the first year, from 2007 to 2008, you had a change of about 3.9%. Now, that is attributed to the load shedding that we're having, supply challenges we're having during that period. And if you can recall, it's the same period where globally there was a market crash. It impacts our biggest customers, which is industrial. The slight recovery that you see in 2009, before I move to 2009, I think you'll note that that period we also saw one of the highest tariff adjustments. 2009, we started to see a recovery. That was mainly driven by our preparation for the World Cup. That recovery continued till about 2012, and then we started to see another decline in that period as well. 2012 is a period when we had one of the longest strikes, industrial issues in the platinum sector, specifically around Marikana. And subsequent periods to that is a general decline in the construction industry, specifically around steel and the cement industry. So I think in essence, as you said, if you look at those profiles, it's very difficult then to say if price goes up, volumes come down. Because even when the price was coming down, the volumes were coming down. So what impacts those changes in terms of consumption? Well, there's a few that I've listed here. And as mentioned, the low economic growth due to global factors, recession, exchange rate, trade barriers, a decline in commodities and metal demand, especially around price. When I presented this, I think, in Rustenburg, price of platinum was sitting around $815 per ton. The sweet spot, we're told by the customers, is around 1,400. Anything that falls under 800, it creates a problem in the industry. So besides electricity, you'll see that even the commodity price has a huge impact. Implementation of energy efficient technologies, labor or strikes, changes in the structure of the economy. We've moved from a very energy intensive industry to a more service-driven industry, and that industry is using less energy. Government policy uncertainty. I think you'll recall some of the challenges we're having around the mining charter. Electricity supply challenges, I mentioned those. Logistic challenges. It was interesting on Friday when Mr. Mangenhoven presented the mining outlook. 6% is your input cost in terms of electricity. 48% was attributed to logistics. So there is a huge challenge in that space. Recycling of scrap, crime and illegal mining. So in essence, I think in closing is that we would welcome any verification in terms of the assertion of banking that price is one of the contributing factors, but it's not one of the dominant factors. Thanks, John.
Chair, I would like to take us through briefly on the economic analysis section of the presentation, and start by recounting what the National Treasury's opinion is after assessing the 15% tariff increase that we submitted. It is common cause that the price increase would have a negative impact on economic growth. That we said. The National Treasury itself says that they expect a deviation from their baseline growth trajectory of about 0.1 percentage points over the forecast period, over the MYPD period. So that is the case. In particular, we recognize that sectors that are energy intensive, if you look at the gold mining sector, the uranium mining sector, and subsectors in particular, the platinum sector following suit quite closely, that the impact on those sectors would be more pronounced than in sectors that are less energy intensive. But overall, the key point that comes out here is the realization that the impact on this of the threatened or undermined security of supply over time would have a greater impact on economic growth than a particular envisaged tariff increase. That is an important point to keep in mind. As well as the elasticity at an aggregate level. As I mentioned, that different sectors have got different intensity levels. So you would expect demand response to vary across different intensity sectors or sectors with different intensity levels. So the overall on aggregate, the elasticity levels, according to the National Treasury's calculations themselves, is no more than 0.5. So we still say price is the price elasticity of electricity demand at an aggregate level is still relatively inelastic. But there is evidence that it has increased over time. But at the point where we are at this particular juncture, that is the outcome that we have. And that dovetails quite nicely in terms of what the National Treasury own modeling, independent of us, own modeling came up with, that it is less than 0.5. But speaking of price elasticity, I just want to put this matrix that I've shared before to say, when you look at price elasticity, one has to read that in tandem with income elasticity or output elasticity or whatever proxy of economic activity in that particular sector that you may have. Because price elasticity has a dampening effect on overall consumption, and then output elasticity or income elasticity has a positive impact on that. So it is important that when you read these things, you read them in tandem so that you get somewhat of a clearer picture of what the outcome may look like. And I think a case in point, just to make the point, is what Nersa itself submitted on its response after making its decision on our last application, that they calculated that at the 19.9 tariff increase which we were seeking at the time, there would be a 2.6 percentage point drop in sales. Now, if you just look at that in isolation and you interpret that to be elasticity, then that elasticity level is relatively low. That's like 0.15. That is relatively low. But what you would be missing is that imputed in that calculation is the positive impact, the positive assumptions that have been put in there about economic growth, about activity levels at the sectoral level and at an aggregate level. So at any given point, there are factors that contribute, as you input a price increase, there are factors that contribute to the opposite direction. You can see there that according to Nersa's estimates at the time, the one-year estimates, is that we're giving away a 5.23% increase, and we anticipated that the sales volumes were going to increase by 1.8%. I have it in good authority that we are not realizing that level of sales increase, that our standard terms volume is actually about 0.2% decline. That is not to say that these projections, these one-year projections were incorrect. This is a simple demonstration of the key elements that you put into your forecast for a particular year. And if your projections on the positive side of income elasticity or output elasticity or GDP growth, if we were to put it in simpler terms, that if they do not materialize, then your computed outcome may not be consistent with what will eventually be realized. So I think it goes back to what my learned friend was indicating, that there are other factors here that are playing quite a significant role. In our opinion, a role that is even more dominant than price itself in determining the absolute or the ultimate level of consumption in a particular sector and indeed as a country, at the country level. But the question that may be raised and the question that has been raised before from members of the panel is to say we should be mindful that as you increase prices, what is the impact of that increase in price having on your overall demand? That's something that we should be mindful of. And it has been proposed to us that we should do a snake test, small, significant, non-transitory increase in price. It is our submission that we have not done this test for two reasons. Firstly, because we recognize that we don't think it would be an appropriate test for our sector, for our market, for two reasons. One, that we recognize that Eskom has got high concentration levels in this market. We supply 90% plus of the energy consumed. That is, it goes via our wires at one point or the other. So with that high concentration level, in order to do a proper SNP analysis, you have to assume that your departure price is at a competitive level or can be tested to be competitive at that. With 90% concentration, and this has been the case for many a decade, an argument could be made that actually your departure price was monopolistic in nature to begin with. So even if you come up with the outcome that says that you are not in antitrust behavior, your reference point of departure is incorrect. So that is the first problem. The second issue is that in Eskom, in the market that we have very limited deviation ratio. So, and by that I mean we do not have idle capacity somewhere in the market, maybe not in Eskom hands, but in the market, that is ready to pounce, if one could put that language, in the event that Eskom's price rise and then demand deviates from Eskom's supply. So we do not have that excess capacity, either that idle capacity, either at the generation level or even maybe at the long end at the transmission level. So these two factors put us squarely in the case that if we were to do a SNP test, we would fall squarely in what is commonly referred to as the sort of a fallacy. That is where we would be. Or as or commonly in the power sector, what is referred to as a power system fallacy. That we would simulate a scenario where people can use alternatives, where we would simulate a scenario where someone else is ready to take over on spilled demand, if one can put it that way, whereas we know that in reality that is not necessarily materializing. We have an elasticity level of 0.5, or 0.5 is calculated, so my tariff increase is revenue positive. That is the point. But to stop there would be misleading, would be missing the point. I think the point of our regulators was to say there is a new entrance of interrupters in your market in the form of small-scale embedded generation. Do you guys consider that, and what would the impact be on your overall sales going forward? So what we have done, we have conducted a study. We looked at, in particular, PV technology and where it is at different levels of customer usage. And we acknowledge that we have seen tremendous improvement in this sector, in this particular component embedded into our demand curve, that we've seen tremendous improvement on that the cost is projected to come down. It's been coming down at an approximate rate of 8% per annum, although that is expected to plateau somewhat in the next year or two as the technology matures. So that would be a consideration made by the customers, our customers, when looking into that. But what are the limitations that we identify in this sector as a viable alternative, particularly for our large-scale customers? Firstly, the technology itself has got a low load factor, in the average of 25 to 30%. It is not available on demand. And as it has been stated before, that battery backup technology is not yet commercially or even technically viable, at least for large-scale deployment. So it is not an alternative that is viable at the moment for our customers at the moment in its own merit. It is something that would have to be considered going forward. And I think the challenge that it also brings to ESCOM that has to be considered is the tariff structure. A lot has been said about the tariff being cost reflective. But with the advent of small embedded small-scale energy generation, then even the structure itself has to reflect the cost component associated with providing the service to the customer. That is important. Because otherwise we have another embedded subsidy where those who can afford to be partly on the grid will be subsidized by those who are wholly on the grid. But if we look at the penetration levels at the moment, what we have, you would see that we estimate, with the research, another research that we have done, that we estimate that we are accumulating in the region of about 100 megawatts of installed capacity, additional capacity that we install in there. That is lower than the 200 megawatts that is currently projected on our IRP draft, and that is materially lower than what we are projecting in IRP 2010. We were thinking we will have about 7,000 megawatts by 2018. That is not the case. We estimate that there's about 500 megawatts on the top end at this point. And there are different components, there are different demand projections that we have depending on different factors, including our own price, including the price of these alternatives that we have put in place on the graph on the right-hand corner. So the key points that I'm highlighting here is that we are of the opinion that at this point, demand is relatively inelastic. That yes, an increase in price would have negative consequences for our GDP, but the alternative cost of this would far outweigh the solution that we put on the table at the moment. We are mindful that yes, there will be sectors that will feel the pain of this, in particular the gold sector, as I mentioned, the mining sector. We are mindful of the adverse effects that this would have on this sector. But it is our submission that there should be targeted programs that would try to alleviate distressed sectors, not an overall restraint in the increase in price. If we were to do so, we would actually be cutting our noses to spite our face. So there should be programs that are in place, and I think we are participating in that under the leadership of government to have these programs in place, and they should be more targeted and aligned with our industrial policy to try and secure and save the sectors that are already under distress and that will feel even more pain following this price increase. I thank you.
Good morning. I'd like to sort of talk about the production plan, which is a major tool for telling us how much energy we need to produce for each power station, and it does this on a least cost basis time, as we have seen. So when the production plan in the application was done, things have changed significantly since then. Anybody help with this? So some of the key elements are the energy forecast and the generation plant availability. How much plant is actually available? So the changes that have occurred since the application are predominantly in terms of energy forecast, which is our base, and the generation plant availability, as well as when the renewable plant coming online. Here's a highlight of what these changes are. Okay. So now what came about from the production plan that we used in the application was that to meet the demand, there were 3 stations that at various stages in the application period would not be required to produce electricity. However, due to all the uncertainties in the assumptions that were made, we said we're just going to shut these down and keep them as an insurance policy in case they're needed in the future. So for this reason, we took out all the capex and significantly reduced the opex in the application for these stations. So with all the changes in assumptions, we then redid the production plan, and in it, we actually took all these units out, because 12 units, including unit 3, 12 units have already been shut down, so we took these out, and there are another 12 units throughout the period where they're going to reach what we call the dead stop date, which means it's a date where they need to have major interventions, major capital expenditure to be able to continue to run them. So we assume they shut down at these dates and we take them out. Also, under our current assumptions, it will take an extended period to bring these units back, so they also be taken out of the RAG. So we don't take them into the production plan and we don't include them in the regulatory asset base. Similarly, there's no capex and reduced opex for these units. So in that respect, there's no change from the application production plan to what we assume now. Okay. However, if things change, if our assumptions don't pan out and we do require them in the future, we will be able to bring them back. So now the question, of course, is, well, our performance is a lot worse than what we assumed, so why haven't we brought them back? But first I want to talk about the impact of those changes. And as you can see here, due to both the reduced demand and the reduced availability, the coal produces less electricity required, as you can see here. But we will also require more OCGT usage, predominantly due to the reduced availability of our coal units. So, in effect, our net production reduces. That's the impact. That's the key impact of all of these things. Okay. Now, to come back to the earlier point as to why we didn't bring back these units, well, they cost twice as much as what the OCGTs will cost. Over the period of the MYPD4 and both the application and the projection years, there are estimates based on the current outlook is that utilizing OCGTs would be less effective. Sorry, more effective than bringing back these units. We were also asked, well, why didn't we relocate MT and ST-PPPs? Well, we didn't even consider this one in the production planning process mostly because the extended time frame that would be required to bring these back, all the processes that we need to go through, but we could look at that in the future. Okay. We've also spoken quite a bit about the maintenance that we have done and need to do. So here I want to show you what has been the plan from 2016 to the end of this financial year, which is the end of March this year. So we had 231 outages in the base plan. We've completed or executed 138 of them. We've deferred 47 and we cancelled 46. Now there are 2 reasons why we were able to cancel these outages. Firstly, some of them relate to the units that we shut down, so obviously we don't need the outages. But also, we updated our maintenance philosophy from a purely time-based to also including risk and condition-based elements, so we don't need those. But in this period, we've also added an additional 121 outages. And in the future, you can see here the outages that are in the plan for the next 3 financial years. We've also spoken about the quality of our maintenance. So here we want to show that of the 16% of unplanned losses, that's UCLF, what we do to measure the efficiency and effectiveness of our maintenance, we look at the unplanned losses in the 60 days after the unit comes back from outage. And that contributes 0.6% of that whole 16.5%. Okay. Now we also looked at some benchmarks. So we did looked at three benchmarks from EPRI, the IEA, but then we also looked at the sub-Saharan African utility sector. And all of these, as you can see, are fairly similar in terms of dollars per kilowatt hour per year. So we compare ourselves to the median of these, which is this one. Okay. Now, this is the flat line here, which you can see here, and that is because we've levelized it over the life of the station. However, we in the recent past have been in that midlife period that we've spoken about quite often, where we need to do more upgrades, etc. So we expect to see these humps over here. Now, and then into the future, we're going to do this. So if we take the actual exchange rate of each year and project it, this is what we get, which is significantly below the benchmark. Okay. However, if we say, okay, let's assume that the exchange rate is slightly more favorable, and if we look at about 12 Rand to the dollar, this is where it is. And it's still in line, slightly below the benchmark. So we're in the range. Also, if we look at manpower, now, our research shows that in the US coal stations, they're looking at 3.38 megawatts per employee, and ours is 3.46. However, this World Rate report that we agree is a very good report, but has some issues, one or two issues with it. They look at 9.53 megawatts per employee. This is significantly higher than the rest of Africa for various technologies, and also, for example, Botswana for coal station at 2.44. So if we look at our ratio of 3.46, and it's similar to the US actual data, and 42% better than the World Bank's ratio for Botswana even, and if we add our peaking, etc., we get over 13,500 employees, as opposed to the 4,600 that the World Bank recommends. Now, if we apply the World Bank standard then to the US, it would say the US is 2.8 times overstaffed. So this is quite significant. I'd like to leave you with two key points. We are not happy in terms of performance and relation points where we are, but we have plans to address it, and such as the maintenance, which I showed you in this plan. And secondly, our costs are in line with international benchmarks. Thank you.
Chairperson, if I just go to fraud and corruption, I think first point I want to just reiterate that board and ESCOM and management, we are committed to dealing with fraud and corruption. It will take time. This is just our latest update in terms of where we are in terms of our investigations, the number of senior executives that have been implicated, 12 criminal cases being opened, and 9 of them being senior officials. We have just over 1,000 cases outstanding at the end of April. We've closed 934 of those, and we still have 115 that are under consideration. In terms of whistleblowing cases, we had 295 under investigation, 140 are completed. ESCOM has conducted a lifestyle audit on its top management structure, and the necessary actions following from those results are really being undertaken. And Chairperson, as we said in Soweto, any of these investigations take time. But once we conclude on it, and like, for example, McKinsey, where there are recoveries and we've recovered, we are comfortable as ESCOM then to adjust that to the regulatory processes going forward, like what we've put on the table today regarding the McKinsey recovery of the R1 billion. And Chair, you know, Eskom is cooperating with the various regulatory, criminal and legislative bodies across the various areas on the Commission Halls, SIU. So from our perspective, all we're trying to say here is once we've concluded on those and we understand the implications, we will be incorporated through the necessary regulatory mechanisms. I'll now ask Leon to talk about electricity on transport, and then I'll conclude with the implications.
Good morning, Chair. We're now going to take a look at the Eskom revenue application from an overall context, and also comparing it to some external benchmarks and references. So the first reference or benchmark we want to utilize is Nersa's own future price path that they published in the Reasons for Decision of June 2009. Just to orientate the audience to this diagram, we were there in time at that point. It was the middle of 2009. Nersa just made their determination for the price increase that would take the price level to 30 cents a kilowatt hour for the financial year that ended 31 May 2010. There's the 30 cents. On the left-hand scale is the price in cent per kilowatt hour, constant 2009 rands. On the right-hand scale is nominal percentage annual increases required. So Nersa published what they call a price code, and they gave the code with the upper boundary, the blue line, and a lower boundary, the green line. The upper boundary stabilized at 80 cents a kilowatt hour. You see that, which was the level I said would be required for cost effectivity in 2001 rands. The lower boundary hadn't yet, by the time the graph cut off here, hadn't yet reached its plateau point of cost effectivity. It was already at 65 cents at that point. And the percentages required to achieve the slope of the upper boundary was, for the upper boundary, 60% that you read off there, and then 30%, and then inflation. For the lower boundary, the slope would be achieved with 30%, 30%, 30%. 30% and then something obviously beyond that to close that last little gap. So what we do is we put that in a financial model, spreadsheet model, extended it to 2024, and plotted the actual Eskom prices against what happened. So this green line indicates the actual price path that we achieved since then up to here where we are now, 2018-19, and it's clearly well below the bottom boundary of the price curve. So you can also see the three MYPD applications that Eskom launched. Here's MYPD 2, where Eskom attempted with 3 times 25% increase, 3 times 35% increase to get into the cone between the upper and lower boundary. We made some progress from this level up to that level, but there is some way to go. Still with MYPD 3, Eskom then tried to close the remaining gap with 5 times 16, which would have taken it into the cone. The decision took it to this level there. Then with one year application, obviously the gap was too big to close in one go, but Eskom wanted to make some progress, but achieved a 5% determination. And now with MYPD 4, Eskom is applying for 3 times 15% that will take it to the bottom edge of this price code, and then around about 10% normal increases twice required, and then that will reach cost effectivity, at which point it will plateau. So how does that compare to current prices and benchmarking in terms of 2018-19 money? So if we convert that 2009 graph to constant 2018-19 rands, we find that Nersa's upper boundary of their price code translates now to 135 cents in today's money, 114 cents bottom boundary, which and in dollar terms this would be 10 US cents a kilowatt hour. This one would be 8.5 cents a kilowatt hour. We already know that 8.5 cents by any international norm is very, very low for any product, including generation, transmission, and distribution per cent per kilowatt hour. So if we look at a few benchmarks, what does the World Bank say in their recent report? The World Bank says Eskom should be if they achieve efficient benchmark performance in every aspect of the business, the World Bank says the price for Eskom should be 10 cents a kilowatt hour. So they put it at the upper end of the boundary. The IRP, the recent draft IRP, is in the middle between these two. It's a fluctuating curve, but it's the low point of the IRP is above this bottom boundary, and then it increases from there. For MYPD 3, both EIUG as well as BUSA engaged external consultants to build financial models with which they analyzed Eskom's MYPD 3 revenue application of 5 times 16%. They went to Nersa independently. They went to Nersa at the public hearings for MYPD 3, and both BUSA and EIG recommended to Nersa to not award Eskom as 5 times 16, but to award Eskom something like 5 times 11%. And they showed price paths, and their price path by 2017-18 financial year, which is here in the MYPD 3, would have reached just to the bottom of this price curve. And with 1 year's inflation, that would have been 108 cents today. In the case of BUSA, they used Genesis Analytics. We also did the report and the presentation. So they also confirmed then also with financial modeling, both entities independently, around 108, 110 cents. So where Eskom would have been today if that was implemented, their recommendation was implemented. And of course, Eskom currently sitting at about 90 cents a kilowatt hour, or 6.5 US cents a kilowatt hour. Now, just to look at the IRP a little bit closer, here's the IRP. If we compare this price cone of Nersa, and we see that the recent IRP, especially the least cost scenario, unconstrained least cost scenario, consisting mostly of solar, PV, wind, and gas, fits virtually completely in Nersa's cone. And also that is confirmed by, if you look at W04, the recent W04, the average price for the PPAs with the generators is about 90 cents a kilowatt hour. But to that you still have to add line losses, reserve margin for the system, and then transmission and distribution costs, and it will take you to about 140 cents, which is in line with the IRP there at the top, with the IRP's least cost scenario. Of course, you still have to add the cost for backup storage and all the other system implications for high penetration of renewables. But in the future, it's likely that, of course, future renewable technologies might be a little cheaper, so the two might neutralize one another. And just a point that some stakeholders make, they say that this price part that this Eskom is asking for, no industry can tolerate that. If that was true, then it would mean the entire IRP is just an academic exercise, because the low point of the IRP is higher than where the price will be for Eskom after 3 times 15% increases. If we look at here's a closer look at the World Bank, 39 utilities they looked at. Here's Eskom, third lowest in Africa in cost, and there's 10 cents a kilowatt hour US. The little circle indicates where the price is, according to the World Bank, quite accurate at about 6.5 cents. And I'm making the point there that at benchmark performance, Eskom's price should be 10 cents. So after 10 years, Nersa can really be commended for a very robust future price path that is still corroborated by numerous credible external references. There's of course a balance sheet impact. If your costs are at least at the bottom edge of this price scale, and your revenue is there, you have to fund that difference. You have to still pay your costs. And as Mr. Casson has indicated, we do that by having doing it by raising debt. Just in this last financial year, this current financial year, 18-19 where we are, this gap between where the price is now and the bottom of the curve equates to 39 billion revenue missing after tax, after factoring in 28% company tax. So of course it didn't just apply for the 1 year. If we look at the period over since Nersa published their price code, it equates to 340 billion missing revenue. that is about 70% of Eskom's liabilities. At the 31st of March 2018, Eskom's debt ratio would have been under 35% if the bottom boundary of the price code had been followed. And only need under 55 to achieve standalone investment grade credit rating. So it would have been solid investment grade, not requiring component guarantees. In effect, this is a price subsidy that has been funded through Eskom's balance sheet. So it doesn't end there, because with the slope towards this level where the costs are covered, there's still going to be at least another 100 billion shortfall, which is why Eskom shows its debt going to over 600 billion by the end of the MYPD cycle, and before it stabilizes, when the price reaches the level of covering the true cost. Chair, just two last points. One about cost efficiency. Yes, it remains crucial. Eskom has committed and has explained over the last 3.5 weeks what it is still doing, where it can still save and where it can still endeavor to improve efficiencies. But all of this falls into that little red arrow there. Even if we assume just to illustrate, it's not plausible to have a 15 billion per annum permanent reduction in primary engine operating and maintenance costs. But just to illustrate what 15 billion would do, it would move the price down from 124 cents to 116 cents. So the cost-effective price would move from the middle of the curve to slightly above the bottom boundary. That's what 15 billion permanent cut in OpEx and primary engine would do. So still above the bottom boundary. That's therefore not an argument. That is not the existence of any potential future efficiency gains. There cannot be an argument about closing this gap indicated by the green arrow from where the price is now to the level where the price would be at benchmark efficient levels, because that price benchmark performance, the cost effective price, would certainly be over 114 cents a kilowatt hour in this year. Chair, and then final slide. So the main cause, of course, Eskom is facing cost increases in some of these cost elements. The IPPs, for instance, the power purchase agreements that Eskom has signed and that will come online, the cost to Eskom for paying the power purchase agreements will accelerate or will increase per annum at quite a bit beyond the rate of inflation. That is not something that's controllable by Eskom. So there are a number of cost elements that Eskom has no control over that will increase it above the rate of inflation. But the main reason for the price slope represented, or the price path, the slope of the price path represented by the 3 times 15% revenue application, is the phasing out of the current subsidy that is embedded in Eskom's price at 6.5 cents a kilowatt hour. Of course, this does not preclude continued subsidization in future, still of certain vulnerable industries or of poor people, indigent, and so on. But what we know cannot any longer carry on is that Eskom keeps funding that subsidy due to the underpricing by loading its balance sheet further. We have maxed out on that mechanism. So, Chair, just for the record, the conclusions are there. It's in text. I'm not going to read through it. I'm just submitting it for record. So, in the interest of time, I will hand over now to our Chief Financial Officer,
Thanks, Chairperson. I think, as Leon said, this application is forecasting the cost to operate and produce electricity to meet the demand. And I'll focus on the cost elements. And at the end of the day, we have debt service commitments that we also need to make. So, to just, on a high level, look at our primary energy per the application. And Chairperson, yes, the next slide will show how we've updated that following what Brad spoke in terms of the production plan. But if you look at it from what Eskom has spent and incurred between the MYPD 3 period and the forecast to the MYPD 4 period, our total primary energy costs year on year on average is growing by about 8.36%. With coal being 8.5%. And we know over this period the renewable program has come online. Yes, the cost growth is 37%, but there's been a significant increase in volumes over that period as well. But what's also important to highlight, Chairperson, that if you remove the coal and the IPP costs, our other primary energy is literally at an inflationary level. Chairperson, when we've updated this with the revision, as we've spoken about, effectively the 8.36% goes slightly up to 8.41% with the latest estimates on coal, and then we've demonstrated that there is also a revision in our latest timing around some of the IPPs to meet the sales adjustment that Mpumalelo spoke about. But again, here, Chairperson, what we're highlighting is that overall it's 8.4%, and as Leona said, even in our application, that when you bring online the new IPP contracts as well, the more volumes will come at a cost, and that escalation was, I think, on average over this period about 15%. So moving away from our production costs over this period, how is our operating cost control looking like? And that's what it reflects over the MYPD 3 to MYPD 4 period. Overall, 3.36%, with employee benefits being 3%, maintenance 4.5%, and other costs at 2.1%. And what we're highlighting here, Chairperson, is that if one looks at the request we have in terms of the revenue requirement, it's not these single digits. So it's aligned to the point that my colleague Mr. Yobe is saying. You need to get the price to a basis where you don't only cover the operating costs, but we also can meet and cover our debt service commitments. So the other big driver to this application is to deal with a situation where Eskom is not borrowing with one to pay for its debt service commitments. In our personal life, where we are sitting now, we are using one credit card to pay for another credit card. And everyone understands that is not a sustainable situation. Chairperson, that's just reflecting it. We presented the details around distribution and transmissions cost analysis in one of our previous sessions. This is just highlighting how it relates to the generation business by itself, with the employee benefits there being 5.8%, bit more maintenance being done on the generation fleet of 5%, and your other costs coming in at literally about 1.5% on average over the period. We were also requested to highlight is comparing the renewable technologies and where those average prices are to Eskom's price of electricity. And Chairperson, the next slide just highlights that you will see that the generation price is still lower than the lowest renewable price. Also, we understand that one must not just look at it from a pure price perspective. As Gabriela highlighted, you must understand what are the load factors and some of the backup technologies that are required in case the renewables are not available. So that's the point we just want to highlight on this slide, Chairperson. Ultimately, we've heard throughout these public hearings what does the 15%, and then yes, we've updated it. And when we updated it, we did not change the revenue requirement. So we did not ask for another rand in terms of the revenue requirement. However, if you divide the same revenue requirement by a lower sales volume, one would expect that the percentage will go up, and that has resulted in the first year going from 15% to 17%, and in the subsequent years the 15% becoming 15.5%. But what you will see before I conclude is we need Eskom to be sustainable to supply electricity. Many customers want reliable supply. The mining sector needs 24/7 electricity in terms of their load factors. Now, if Eskom cannot meet its commitments to produce this electricity, I think one of the stakeholders mentioned, it doesn't only affect Eskom, it will affect the customer. So yes, it's a difficult situation where the industry and the country finds itself in, but I think it's also important to highlight that our sustainability is key to the sustainability for the key industries as well. So just to reiterate, when we change for the production and the sales and the units, etc., our objective, and as Mr. Foley asked, but did you use a balancing factor in terms of the formula? And yes, that is the return on assets, but we left it from the basis of the application, which was to get to a position by year 4, Eskom can meet its cash flow requirements and be neutral. In the first 2 years, Chairperson, even with this revenue application and the consequential price increases, we are still in the region of 50 billion rand short from a cash flow perspective. So that is the situation that is facing us, and by year 3 we want to be in a situation where we don't have to use one credit card for another. So just to summarize and reiterate the changes there, Chairperson, in terms of the revenue requirement situation, taking into account everything, the key point to highlight in the column of the changes, there was no change in the revenue requirement. We were dividing it by the lower volumes. And there's basically the primary energy changes, the RAB changes, and you will see that on our expenditure side, we did not make any changes. Now, at the end of the day, yes, the price has increased significantly over a number of years. I think it's 5-fold, but at the same time, Eskom's debt position has increased 10-fold over this period. As we said, this trajectory is no longer sustainable, where if we continue, we'll go beyond 600 billion rand. So, what does this all mean in terms of our financial position and our forecast, taking into account this application and what our income statement will look like? And I just want to clarify the one point. In Cape Town, we were asked, what is your outlook for your income statement for this financial year? And yes, I did say that we were targeting to get to a loss of 15 billion rand. That was based on our September results and our September forecast. Following that, we understand what has happened on the generation side, the recovery program and performance of the plant, which means to meet supply and demand, we are using much more expensive options, including our diesel OCGTs for this financial year. And all of that will have pressure on our bottom line. So what happens is that you will see our forecasted income statement for this financial year will reflect, at this point in time, we have a forecast of a 20 billion rand loss. And importantly, as I said, even assuming the revenue requirement on a 17% price for the first year of MYPD4, the bottom line is of a similar level, around close to maybe rounded off to another 20 billion. And thereafter, as the price increases, we literally get very close to break even with a loss of 3.6 billion. And only in the third year, Chairperson, Eskom's financial forecast will return to profitability. Now, 2 points to highlight on this slide. The capitalized interest will not be shown on this income statement, and for accounting purposes, we show historic depreciation and not the revalue per the regulatory formula. So, yes, we know many stakeholders that say Eskom is making profits. We don't see profits that we're making. We will make significant losses for the next 2 years, and thereafter let's return to a break-even situation on the forecast we have. Obviously, taking this into account, that is why you see in the financials that we've released recently, the auditors are very concerned on our going concern status. We've got the emphasis of matter, we've disclosed it in the financials and in the interims, and with this trajectory, yes, it will remain a concern, and our going concern status is definitely in jeopardy. So, Chairperson, we just want to highlight that importance of the going concern status. If we get to a situation where it is qualified, the implications are significant to Eskom, where the lenders will want to record their debt, government will have to step in, and we'll have to present financials on a liquidation basis. That's the seriousness of the situation that's facing Eskom. And ultimately, Chairperson, when we conclude that the sustainability of Eskom is key, not only it's key for Eskom, it's key for the industry. We don't have the amount of alternatives in terms of IPPs of that magnitude to step in overnight. So if we're going to meet the electricity demands for the country over the next few years, Eskom is the supplier for the next few years. As we migrate on IOP and more players coming, then you can look at the alternatives. But many calls have been for zero increase, inflationary increases. Now the reality is this, we have an RCA of 32 billion that is phased in over the next 4 years. That is the 4.4%. IPPs in this application, when you weigh over the total revenue requirement to bring on the new contracts, plus the standard inflationary adjustments that currently exist, they will require 2% just to make that a pass-through principle. So, Chairperson, the reality is for the first year, we are already sitting at the inflationary target without giving Eskom a single increase for its own cost of operations. So in our understanding, Chairperson, you are going to beat that threshold. And then the similar principle will apply that in year 2 and year 3, the IPPs must be a pass-through component in the region of 2%. And as we propose is the amount of debt we borrow, we need to start demonstrating where we can meet our debt service commitments and repay it. Yes, I must acknowledge that in this income statement, we have proposed to government taking over a portion of the debt. We mentioned 100 billion. Chairperson, the income statement does not reflect that because we do not have a decision on it. Obviously, if that decision is favorable, it will improve the income statement to a certain extent. Yet we need to deal with the real debts in municipalities. At the end of the day, Chairperson, we need the reliable supply of electricity because we know the impact of not having electricity and load shedding, what it does to the economy, is far greater. At the end of the day, the debt providers, the auditors, stakeholders, consumers will all be looking at this decision. The reality is tough decisions have to be made if we're going to meet the supply of the requirements in this industry. And ultimately it comes down to, Chairperson, the consumer or the taxpayer will have to then deal with the requirements to make sure that the industry is sustainable as well as the consumers. So, Chairperson, that's concluding our submission today at the hearings and conclusion throughout this process. Thank you, and we will take questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kassim, for the presentation.
then I'm going to ask the members of the panel to ask specific questions from the presentation. I'll start with Mr. Ford.
Thanks, Jim. I just want to direct the slide number 3. Regardless of the number that there, just, you know, if you take 2018 where you say 0% growth as your kind of tipping point, just if you look at the trend from 2013 to 18, there's a negative trend going down. And then for the application period going forward, we've been forecast an upward trend. But from the presentation, I didn't get any meat as to why you then change. So you're saying you're going to reverse this trend, all of a sudden it goes from negative to positive. Can you just give us some more information on how you got to that? And then the other one for me was, if we were to plot the actual price over this graph on slide 3, but looking at the different sectors, I mean, this is an overall. It would be interesting, I guess, to know is if there were declines, were they in greater in specific sectors? I mean, that speaks to something that Mr. Conradi presented in Soweto Friday around cross subsidies. Because if the declining sales are, for example, in the industrial and manufacturing sectors where the cross subsidies are being provided to other tariff categories, surely it would mean that the impact on your revenue, even if you said the elasticity was 0.5%, it might actually be a 2 or 3 or 4% impact on your revenue. Can you give us a comment on that, please? And then just slide number 39 for me. Mr. Kasim, I think you mentioned the thing about the increase of the percentage of IPPs. I just think that's not reflecting accurately that green part, which you say the IPPs, which has got this 37.2% growth, for me should really be split into 2. The new capacity coming in that year plus those that are, because from what I understand it's an inflationary increase on the prices that you started. So it's not really a true reflection for me. On your slide number 45 versus 47, the revenue numbers don't seem to match. Can you please just check and give us a comment there? And in slide number 45, and this talks to the 17.1% outcome there, is intuitively, if your sales were going to be lower, your primary energy should be lower. But if you look at that slide 45, primary energy is higher in the revised number by about 2 billion, and that seems strange to me. And then I wanted you to also just give us a comment on slide number 40 that you presented in Soweto, where you said with the changes, the shortfall increases from 50 billion to 71 billion, which is probably why you didn't decide to keep that. But the number looks like it's 55 on the slide. So if it is 55, my question was, why couldn't you then just massage your return number and then reduce the revenue by that amount so that you remain at the 15%? Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Fong. Mr. Sir.
Thank you, Jim. Let me start with the issues around the RCA. And so we asked ESCOM in terms of the liquidation of the RCA, and you indicated that with respect to the costs relating to fraud and corruption, you will only account for those in future RCAs once you've recovered the monies. Notwithstanding, obviously, the willingness to then account for the keys recovered that we have. Now, you've also indicated that the investigation, the inquiries, and all the processes around fraud and corruption are likely to take time. And in the meantime, consumers are then made to pay for the cost of that fraud and corruption.
corruption and all related expenditure and so forth. So my question is, obviously as a regulator, we are charged with the duty to balance the interests of the licensee and the consumer and society at large. So effectively what you're doing is you are shifting the risk of that particular cost onto the consumer. And my question is, rather than saying that you will recover or you will account for the costs in future RCAs, why doesn't ESCOM make an estimate of that cost now and make an adjustment to the RCA? So that if there's an over and under adjustment, then you can always recover in future RCAs. So that way, you are then absorbing that risk, or you are taking full responsibility for that cost instead of shifting it onto the consumer. As you have said, these processes are going to take time, but in the meantime, consumers are very much to pay for that. So my question is, will you be willing to make an estimate of that particular fraud and corruption and make an adjustment into the RCA application? And then secondly, probably if I can move on then to the MYPD issues, starting with the sales forecast. Now, you've indicated that you are not going to change anything in terms of the process that you follow in arriving at the estimates and so forth. My question is, in making the adjustment that you've done just now in terms of the sales forecast, did you go back to talk to your customers? Because during the course of these hearings, it seems as if we are talking to two different types of people. Because all the sectors that we have spoken to, we've spoken to people from mining, agriculture, manufacturing, residential customers and so forth. And they are all pointing to the fact that if ESCOM were to increase prices by this margin, they will reduce consumption, businesses will close and so forth and so forth. But you are telling us that your estimates actually don't point to that. So my question is, did you go back now to talk to your customers in terms of coming up with the adjustment that you've done? Which then leads me to the next question around price elasticity. When you say your price correlation study or calculation actually doesn't indicate any inverse relationship between pricing and sales. Now, my question is, don't you, or rather, does your model take into account the time lag? Because as you know, if tariffs were to increase today, your customers will take time to adjust and so forth. So that probably by the time they adjust to that tariff increase, there's a particular time lag. And it's not clear to me whether your model actually does take into account that particular time, because it doesn't really make sense. Because all the people that we've spoken to, as I've indicated, indicate that, look, if prices increase, we are going to encounter difficulties, we will reduce production, we close shop and so forth and so forth. But your studies seem to be coming up with a different outcome altogether. Now, so with respect to your response around the request to do a SNP test, and you say that it's not going to be of particular use, are you not preempting what is supposed to be an independent study or analysis of the situation should come up Because what you're saying is, well, because you are a monopoly, you account for more than 90% of sales. So basically, if you do a sneak test, the results are going to indicate that your prices are already at super competitive levels. So in a way, you are admitting that you are actually pricing at more than competitive levels. And my question is, what then is the implication of that for Eskom's bid to try to move to cost-reflective tariffs? If already you are saying, well, our prices are above competitive levels, so what are you saying in terms of the bid to move to cost-reflective tariffs? But I find it quite strange that you are preempting an analysis that you are not even undertaking. To say, look, we don't want to do that because we know what the results are going to be. That for me, I think is quite astounding. Probably with respect to the production plan, I just want to understand, and obviously you've said that you've removed from the capex the first stations that are going to be put into cold reserve. However, there's some operational expenditure that will be incurred. So my question is, are we going to see these in future applications? Because these stations are being put into cold reserve, but what happens with the operational costs? Are we going to see these in future applications? And then with respect to the price path, obviously this is based on assumptions, and you mentioned the 2009 decision, which then gave a particular price path, which indicated that by 2016 we will reach the point of cost reflectivity. But we know that those assumptions have actually not materialized. So shouldn't we be talking really of a new price path in this respect? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Simon.
Thank you, Chairperson. And thanks to the presenter for Eskom. I will start off with the RCA. Just a comment on saying that we appreciate if you provide the basis for the liquidation of the RCAs of the MYPD year 5 over the 3 years. And also we can incorporate our own analysis in terms of looking at liquidation. As you know, over 4 years for the previous term. And then on the MYPD 4, on slide 3, there's an increase from 2019 onwards in terms of the sales. If you can please just provide the assumptions to that effect, it's going to help you demonstrate the justification for that increase. On that very slide also, you then go on and argue for price inelasticity. But you recall from our from the public hearing on Friday, last week Friday, and so that there was this whole argument around the business flight or the potential investors deciding not to invest or the existing one pulling out. To say that how do you better that as Eskom in terms of looking at the impact. And linked to that is the issue that you are talking of, as you refer to the small test. Arguing that there is high concentration in the market and therefore there is no need for that. But when we look at the whole problem is that you would have a situation where you increase the price to the extent that the revenue from that you get from the sales actually is not compensating for the price increase. There should be a point where there is a threshold, having to then to look specifically at that and then to come back to us and say this is what this is according to your analysis. this is what was needed according to your own analysis. And you also talk to the issue, again, related to the issue of price. You talk that the main result is the inadequate supply. That is the one that is either direct on a strike level, the two last bullets there. When you talk of the real or perceived, isn't that created by underperforming ESCOM power plants? And therefore, something that ESCOM must be able to shoulder and not let the consumer pay for that. And then my question is, why would we rate the plants based on their lower than required availability and performance, and therefore accordingly adjust the CapEx of fixed costs associated therewith? Because then that will have an impact in terms of the price that or the tariff that you require. And you presented from slide 19. I would like to know, because now the reduction in CapEx is not as was expected. I just like to know how many units are now in operation versus what we have revised now. You remember that these 3 units that you are saying you have pulled out. I just want to get exactly how many units are in, how many units were in there. That's what one can see the difference between those put on the reserve and the. And just to go back a bit on slide 10, you talk of the growth scenarios. If you just please provide the assumptions used for those various scenarios. And then on slide 22, when you use the comparison with the US plans, we'd like to get to understand in terms of the in terms of the generation capacity of those plants, so one can compare, because you expect that if the ESCOM side is a bigger plants, one would expect to get economies of scale, and then should actually have lower costs than those in the US in any event. And on slide 26, going forward on those, I'd just like to understand, because we had said that every decision created a new price path, and therefore you cannot keep holding on to what the price path was in the 2009-10 to then say that you are subsidizing us or subsidizing the consumer in terms of the price. If you can just be able to clarify the point for me, because I did not get it clear that you are following a new price path based on the decision as we go along. And then on the slides, on the slide on corruption, they are actually by and large sided as to what one was expecting coming to this presentation today. Because we were expecting that we are going to have some kind of an estimate, and then based on that estimate, you then factor it in the RCA, as well as even going forward to the MYPD4. We have just kind of discount that element based on what we've observed, and provide us also, I think it will also help to provide some principles that you propose be used in factoring this fraud and corruption going forward, so that there are less debates around it. And on slide 42, when we talk of the employee benefits, I just would like to know whether we are talking about the employees as for the staff complement that has been optimized, or the staff complement as it stands. Just want to know those figures going forward, because remember there's a lot of optimization that you also need to do as ESCOM. Are those figures already incorporating the optimization, or they are pre-optimization? Then on slide 45, I think it will have to revisit, I think the 70/20 fixed to variable cost assumption, just to look at that. And because I see that volumes go down, but the cost remain the same. In fact, if you want to look at primary energy, it is actually increasing instead of decreasing. If you can just please explain that anomaly, because I was expecting that one is going to have an increase, plus one would also have to re-rate the plans because they are not performing as one would expect them to perform. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thanks also to the ESCOM team. I think we've been doing these public hearings for a few weeks now, but I was hoping that by today some of the questions that we are asking, you would have answers for. But I'm not sure why we're not getting some of those. So if you start with the RCA, and you go to the slide that shows your actual application. I think it's slide number 1. Go back. Yeah, just stay on the slide. No, that's sorry, not slide number 4. Every time you show this slide, this one. Every time you show this slide, we asked you a few questions. We said to you, look at the reduction in revenue. That's around 14%. Or let's just say under 15%. Just your variable costs on their own, why are they not dropping at the same rate as the reduction in the volume of sales? We are hoping that at subsequent presentation you'll come and delve deeper into some of these questions, but we see you still have not come up with some of the answers to those questions. But we also asked you to have a look at some of the RCA decisions that we made on the same MYPD3 and indicate what these numbers would look like. And we clearly haven't done so. Clearly we will do our own work. It's a pity that we haven't had looked at this. At least you are not coming up with some of the answers to the questions that you asked. But there's also a principal issue. And it relates to, in fact, I think it permeates the entire presentation, both on the RCA and also on the MYPD4. And perhaps the question is, what do you regard as long-term and short-term? You've had decades of flex sales, and you still are not adjusting your operations to take account of the flex sales, the environment within which you operate. And for decades, your costs have been going up. Yes, we're saying they're going up slightly below inflation in certain places. At what point do some of these fixed costs suddenly become variable? At what point do you start saying, you know what, we need to scale down our operations, the same way as other industries are doing? And in your mind, what is short-term and what is long-term? If you can just explain that. And maybe if you go to the MYPD4 decision, and we can start perhaps with the slide 26. Because you seem to be on slide 26 of MYPD4. You seem to be saying Nersa should be held to this price cap that is indicated on this slide. And fortunately, he put in that big disclaimer at the bottom there. I know my colleague asked the same question. Just read the disclaimer carefully. It says this price cone is indicative and highly dependent on the assumption used to calculate. Changes to variable values, the cost, sales, volumes, inflation, cost of debt, and any other value as used in this calculation would result in a different price. Future increases could thus vary if conditions change, etc., etc. Now, the point though is this. You're referring to a period of 2009. And this, what Nersa was doing at the time, you said June 2009, was based on information submitted to us probably earlier than that. It was pre-crisis environment. I think we had a financial market crisis just the year before. We've had declining commodity cycle and all those factors. You seem to be wanting to hold Nersa to a price path that you choose and you think is suitable to you. That relates to conditions that have changed considerably. Economic growth didn't pan out as was planned here, and most of the variables have changed. So the question that I need to ask you is, based on your expectation, and in fact all these slides that you derive from wanting to hold us to this price path, is this a reflection that ESCOM continues to ignore changes in market conditions, that you continue to ignore that the economy changes, circumstances changing, even your own performance? And to be quite honest, you have not executed on most of the plans that you promised to do. You are supposed to have come online in 2013. We're still talking about it coming online during this new MYPD4 period. So there's been poor execution, circumstances have changed, and you actually want to hold us with this. In fact, your costs, capital costs have grown up, have gone up during this period that you're talking about. So you want to hold Nersa to this price path based on an environment that existed at the time, and ignoring failed execution on your side and things of that nature. How is it that you wanting the consumer to continue to pay tariffs and ignore the economic circumstances changing? And it's just a principal issue. What will it take to get ESCOM to go and say, economy has changed, we are too critical to the economy to continue business as usual? And why is it that, in fact, your whole application just seems to indicate that things just stay constant moving forward? And if you can explain how we get to a stage where we break the cycle and get ESCOM to change. And maybe to look at one or two details on some of your slides. I know your team explained about when they talk about price elasticity, that you're sticking to what you had forecast. So if we go to slide number 6. Now, and you actually saying Mr. Langehoven, when he did the mining outlook in Soweto, indicated that logistics were the bigger cost and electricity was smaller. But surely that does not remove from you becoming efficient. And perhaps let me ask you, do you dispute the assertions that you made that your 15% per annum increase would decimate the gold industry? In fact, you're no longer asking for 15%, you're asking for 17% in the first year. And so do you dispute what the mining industry is saying? And I think in some of your slides, you need to just, be careful in terms of how you interpret them. There's a difference between reduction in sales and a reduction in the rate of increase in the tariff. Because, you were indicating that some of the tariffs had to be reduced, but none of the tariffs had to reduce over the claim period. I know in the MYPD4 you're asking us to review the volumes on an annual basis. If you can just explain how you intend for us to do that. Do you want us to do a real better and adjust the remainder of the 2-year application, or you want this included in RCA, because that is done in any case when you say we need to go and do an annual revision of the tariff. And how do we get to a situation where we get certainty in the market, and that whatever decisions we make are going to be the tariff that applies during that period. And maybe just to add, I think the slide 7, if you go to the slide 7, or in fact go to slide 8, where we're saying projected increases in electricity sales, the Nersa decision did not materialize. One of the things that and it also starts on slide 7. One of the issues that we need to understand is when we did our own calculations, one of the things we said, and this happens in all economic forecasts, you keep everything constant and then you make an assumption about what the outcome of what the impact of whatever decision makes on your forecast. Now you're indicating that there are other factors are more dominant that affects the sales projection. Can you just indicate what is more dominant than the tariff increase? And if you can just highlight those clearly for us. But you're also indicating that there are no idle capacity. And when it comes to SPPs, you have used them during the MYPD 3 period. This is short-term power purchase program, and MTPPs, the medium-term power purchase program. Please explain why you keep wanting to ignore them during the MYPD 3 period. So this is your application MYPD 4. Why did you continue to ignore them even this year, when you indicated that you are spending a lot more on OCGT, so you're buying a lot more diesel this year because you had load shedding? And why is it that this is not money down the rain? You seem to indicate that it's going to take you much longer to negotiate this, but surely that can be because these are agreements that you had put in place before, we had approved, and the capacity is there. It was available at the time when you were doing load shedding. So, is it not your decisions that are affecting your cash flow challenges that you say you're experiencing? In your comments about IRP 2018 becoming irrelevant, and it's a little strange that with RP 2028, the assumption that you as ESCOM had excess capacity, that in fact some of the plants that you now have agreed that you're going to close, you're not calling them mothball, but you're going to close them in a little area. That capacity is no longer available. That's why you had load shedding. Your new plants are not performing. Can I ask you that if the assumption in the RP 2018, we'll call it the new RP 2018, if the assumption that the new IPPs are going to be postponed at least for 7 years, if that's changed, does it change the picture? Why is it that that doesn't resolve some of the problems during your application period, given that in fact you have much less capacity than you had planned, and one of the biggest problems is your performance. And if you go to the production plan, you clearly seem to have been over-promising and I guess underperforming. Look at the energy availability factor. If you look at slide 14, on slide 14, you're now acknowledging that your plants are not operating at the level that they used to. That in fact, you used to operate at 78% energy availability. Notwithstanding that you're bringing new plants in operations, you're projecting to only achieve 71, the maximum 73.5% energy availability factors. And this year, your figures were in the 60s, late 60s, so slightly lower than this. Now, the difficulty that I have with your performance, especially on your coal plant, is that it's got a cost impact. So technically, a lot more of your units are not available to generate power and bring it into the system. Why is it that, notwithstanding this, your costs are still going up? Why is it that we should not be getting other additional capacity from elsewhere? And why is it that we shouldn't be looking at imports from some of the neighboring countries? I see the chairs or some of the questions we'll ask at the later stage. But maybe let me just ask by saying this. If I look at your model on slide 45, I'll just conclude by on the slide. Your model is not deterministic. So you seem to play around with you basically choose the outcome you want. You play around with the return just to maintain the outcome you want. Should we not hold you to some of the forecasts that you had earlier on? Why is it that we shouldn't say your weighted average cost of capital must be maintained constant? And I think what we'll do is we'll go through a lot of these in detail. But it shouldn't be that suddenly you're not only asking for 15%, you're asking for 17, 15.4, 15.5% tariff increases. And all you do is when you ask me questions, you make adjustments, but you play around with the returns so that you get the same answer that you want. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'll be quick in terms of the questions because clearly ESCOM has not taken into account all the issues that we said we are concerned about. And you keep presenting the same presentation that you made in the other provinces. So that is really not, we're not happy with that. If I may start even with the EAF, or let me just say that when you promised to revise your application in Gauteng, we thought that you will come with realistic figures and some plans. Currently, the application that is before us is defective on 2 grounds for now. And I would like you to respond to that. It is defective on 2 grounds, and the assumptions are simply not going to materialize. And it becomes very difficult for the energy regulator to start, to evaluate something that we can see is not going to work. If I start, for instance, 1 ground, the EAF, in the original application, you estimated 78%. You admitted and you are sitting at 63% on average. Just last week, you also indicated major failures with the new build, such that you said even the plan that you will come up with in terms of solutions may take you 6 months. And you still need to talk to the contractors. And it may take you 2 years to actually fix some of the problems there. And as a result, you stated clearly that even the energy utilization factor is very low at those new plants. It is also sitting around 60% to 70%. How do you now today, with this application that you say you revised, you come to 71%? That clearly it doesn't make sense. You're sitting at 63% and the new plants are not performing, they're sitting at 60% to 70%. So it's not available. And currently, why I say it's defective, there's not even a plan as to how you're going to rectify those. There's no time horizon as to when are you going to fix them so that they are able to be at the required level. How do you justify 71%? So your application on the EAF is not, it won't materialize. You don't have the basis. You have not put the facts. So that's where it's defective. You just don't have anything on that. So that's number one. That's why I'm getting frustrated in terms of how do you expect us to even begin to assess this. The third point that makes it even worse is that in the past 2 weeks, you had to remove uneconomic plans. 2 things that you have done in terms of the plans that you used to contribute. It doesn't matter how much they contributed in the provision of the service. You have identified units that are in an operability state. And those ones, they will never work if we may put it that way. You stated clearly that we're probably using the term inoperable, but it's just going to take a lot of money to fix them. So you have put them aside. That's number one, those number of plans. Now, secondly, again, to reducing your regulatory asset base, you then removed other plants or units, and you say these ones will be on cold storage. So there are 2 measures there. Inoperability, then you've identified those ones. And then the others will be on cold storage. I even asked the question, what would it take to bring these ones that you are saying are on cold storage? What would be required? Will they be available in 6 months? Will they be available in 12 months? Will they be available in 24 months? So that we can see whether they can contribute in these 3 years of the MYPD form. So taking into account those plans that you have now removed, number one, taking into account the average energy availability factor that is sitting at 63% today. Thirdly, taking into account the fact that the energy utilization factor also in the new plants is also sitting around 60%. How do you get to 71% for us to start looking at? So that's the first grounds for this application, that we say your assumptions are simply not going to materialize. So you might approve something that is not going to materialize at all. And there is no plan as to how you get to the 71%. To rectify the situation of the deteriorating performance. So that we don't have. So secondly, it is in relation to the sales forecast. Mr. Masig here is talking about the fact that we were trying to guide ESCOM here with respect to the sales forecast. Unfortunately, the sales forecast now already you differ with your own customers, big customers. When you do your forecast, you go and speak to your customers, and we stated clearly, when we talked about the state test, we wanted to check the change in your demand, not what you have put. The slide that you have put here, slide 4, it's an accurate measure at all. When you do an elasticity of demand, you look at your own demand, the demand of the Fed. Not any other things, all of these variables about the statistics from Treasury, that's not what we are looking at. You're simply looking at now the macroeconomic variables. We talk about the micro effect, sectoral effect from the customers. And that's your industrial economics before you even get to the macroeconomic issues. Now, by the way, if I may just clarify again to ESCOM, a SNP test does 2 things. It's a practical tool, by the way. A tool that is used to estimate elasticity of demand. Let me simplify it. It's a tool that is used to estimate the elasticity of demand. And then number 2, the case that we're talking about, all of us, economists of competition law, we know that the cellophane case, it doesn't get into this one. Yes, it measures issues of substitutability, but not what we're talking about. So you go to something that is not even relevant to the assessment. The SNP test is a practical thing. What it does, it says, what will customers do if the price increases? Why is that small in non-transitory? It says, if it's 5%, how much is it? You get it in any other jurisdiction. You can go to the US, to the EU, you will find that kind of question. And we're talking here about facts. We're not talking about what ESCOM assumes. Because already the evidence that is before us is not the same. Sectors and customers are saying, this is what we will do. So we wanted ESCOM to go to customers and say, if the price increases under these circumstances by 5%, what would you do? If the price increases by 10%, by 15%, the EU even uses 25%, but in other markets they will end at 15%. So once you do that, it is the practical way of them estimating whether by increasing the price by 5%, would you still be profitable? Would your demand now reduce? That's what it says, the sleep test, and nothing more than that, except those two measures. And then the third thing that the sleep test will apply is, if I may assist, you will apply it in assessing the critical sales loss. It is a sales loss analysis. So if, for instance, because you're measuring your own demand on elasticity, since it's a tool to estimate the elasticity, so if your own demand is affected because there's a change in price, then what happens to your profitability? You've already given us evidence. I don't think that you realize that you've already admitted evidence here. You've already stated that in the next 2 years, ESCOM will not be profitable. Think about that, because now it nullifies the economic arguments that you've already provided before us. And for me, that is the fact that you didn't realize that already you are stating. So if we were to measure using the sleep test and we find that then there's no, you are not profitable and your demand has come down, that would be the measure that we then have to use. But I see that the economists from ESCOM did not take that into consideration because they didn't follow exactly what that test is meant to do and how it is applied. So I want to say that what you have in slide 4 is an incorrect measure when you look at the price elasticity of demand. And you actually mentioned even substitutability, but here you're not even admitting because what you are at pains with is trying to run away that price has any effect in the demand that has declined. You're trying to run away from that. And you're not putting it. And also the substitutability element that you mentioned, even in resting there, you are not mentioning. So those are the things that every time we get the information that admits this, and tomorrow we get a different information, and then it becomes a problem. So if you could just answer those ones and take it seriously that really the application that is before us, it's very defective. Because the sales forecast must be based on the actual information when you put the relevant economic questions. Because now if you assume on the historical consumption, you are not looking forward what customers are saying they will do, or the responsiveness. Remember the statistics about responsiveness. How are they going to respond if there's a change in price? Thank you, if you can respond.
Thanks, Chairperson, and those questions. Maybe let me start with the last one, around the effective application. Remember, my understanding what the regulator requests from ESCOM is, what is the evidence that you, as individual participants in this process, what is your evidence? And Chairperson, we're taking the oath here, but we're saying, this is ESCOM's evidence around sales forecast that we have. Now, yes, everyone can have different views. I can't go and change our evidence because many other stakeholders have a different view. We are under oath presenting our evidence. So from that perspective, Chairperson, I'm comfortable that ESCOM is not defective on the sales forecast. And let's deal with EAF as well, and the technical guys can help me. We have a 9-point recovery plan that we mentioned to media, etc., and what we're doing about it. And we said we're going to fix the existing plant, we're going to fix the new plant. We did agree, and we did say it's not going to happen overnight, it will take time. And if I recall what my colleague Titus did in Soweto, he did say that the question, Chairperson, linking to the D-rating, we have plans to get the performance to the design and design levels. we should not be premature in de-rating those plants now, because we want to first execute and make sure that we deal with our suppliers and our contractors. And as a last resort, once we've explored all those options, we would then consider de-rating as a last resort. And maybe the technical guys can on EAF mention this. I know, yes, if you look at recent EAF, it may be sitting at 63 on certain days. But I think the average EAF for the year, Chairperson, is a bit higher, and Brad and the technical guys can explain that. But I think we must also agree to disagree on certain aspects. Like my economic colleague says, this is our view as Eskom from SNP tests, etc. And there can be disagreements. And maybe lastly, Chair, on sales and EAF, like every other item in the application, the regulatory processes allows for Nersa to make their decisions on certain items. If Nersa is uncomfortable with the sales forecast and they believe we are too optimistic, my understanding in terms of the mechanism, they can adjust it even lower. But let's make sure when we do that, we do the corresponding changes on the production plans and the primary energy costs. But maybe I mentioned a bit of sales, let my colleagues deal with the EAF and specifically the sales.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thanks, Mr. Kasem. Chair, maybe let me make a correction. There's nowhere where we state price has no impact on sales. Let's be clear on that. It does have an impact, but we say it's not a driving force behind what you see in the performance of sales. I'll touch on the specific points around the growth. I think Mr. Foley asked from 2019, 2020 going forward, what are the assumptions there? In Rustenburg, I clearly presented our curve of uncertainty, both the upside and the downside. And to be clear, sitting in there, it's only projects that we received from the customers, and the customers have accepted a budget quote. Now, a budget quote, we've got a certain amount of certainty that will go ahead. And we haven't included anything else that is a wish list. So if you talk to the customers and we talk to the customers and we come to different budget quotes, that will be a problem. So what I'm saying is, all that we included in the forecast is firm wishes from the customer. And I also need to state that there's a year which is a leap year. Leap year is an additional day. That an additional day only gives us in excess of 500 gigawatt hours. You might see it as a growth, but it's an additional day. Subsequent to that year, there's one or two generation displacement projects that will be coming to an end. I'm not going to go into all the details of what's sitting in that forecast. It is available for us to submit, and we'll gladly do that. Now, there was also a question to say, what are the other sectors doing? Rustenburg represented 4 other sectors: commercial, mining, municipalities as well, to this standard tariff one. So I'm not sure then if we're supposed to go to all the other 11, that is a question. But even in the other additional 4 that we presented, you'll remember that commercial is not decreasing at all, despite what the tariff adjustment is doing. The mining is decreasing, but there's specific reasons around that. Price list is one of them. But your customers as well will say, we can't do long-term forecasting or planning because we don't have certainty in terms of price. That's one of the issues. We mentioned logistics. There's a clear example that's regularly made of a customer who says, look, it costs me more to move my equipment from the harbour to inland than it costs for me to move the same material from China to here. Therefore, it's more competitive for me to go overseas, to Malaysia. No price mentioned in that story. So, you know, in terms of that, and I repeat again, we're not saying price doesn't have an impact. does play an impact, but there's no certainty.
Can we then get information on that, Mr. Kassim? Because what we don't have, we do not have information from ESCOM as to the extent of price increase on the demand and the sales volumes. That's what then is required. If you admit that aspect, then where is the information from your side, not showing just the other sectors, where is the information showing that if there's a price increase, this is the extent to which the demand is impacted? Where is that information? That's the one that is missing.
Chairperson, noted.
Chair, I want to respond to one or two questions that were raised here. In particular, the question that was asked about our sales level, whether we dispute what the gold or what the Mineral Council was submitting, in particular about the gold sector, that this price increase would be extremely heavy on this sector. We do not dispute that, but it is our submission nonetheless that the gold sector has been in a sustained decline for almost 30 years now. And even if you look at the share of electricity as a component on overall costs, they are sitting at 15%. In their own numbers, they seem to estimate about 15% as compared to 6% with the average mining sector. And they themselves said that is because they find themselves increasingly so as the sector has passed its twilight years, that they now have to dig even deeper, and even when they get even deeper, the quality of the ore that they have is not of the same standard as what they used to get before. So the sector is in pressure. That would be the case. Even if we were to have relatively small price increases, our assessment is that we would still see a continued trend of a decline in sales in the gold sector. Overall, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, the sales composition of ESCO would be different to what we have now and what we had 10 years. In a sense, 10 years ago, in a sense that we would be selling more to the tertiary sectors of our economy rather than to the primary sectors of our economy, simply because our economy continues to grow in those sectors more than it does in the mining and other primary elements. That is my first submission. The second issue on the SNP, I wish to apologize up front. I did not mean to sound recalcitrant in any way about the SNP. But my opinion remains that when I said that it is not an extremely helpful exercise given the concentration that we have in our market, and given the fact that the diversion ratio that we have from price increase is minuscule, if ever, because of the structure of our market. I was attributing that at best that would give us something that is academically incorrect or at worst misleading. But I understand the concerns of my regulators to say they want to see how the price encourages my users to move into alternatives. And that is why we now focus onto alternatives, what we have on the presentations about research that we did on the viability of alternatives. And we remain steadfast on this point, that if you look at our large users, our large customers, let's stay on the examples of mines. If we look at them, the solutions that are currently available for them are multiple more expensive than what ESCOM is offering them. That is why they are not building their own stations. That is why they don't have PV plants with battery storage to supply them. That is the only reason why they will do so, because these are profitable exercises. These are profit-driven exercises. Otherwise, why would they not build their own stations to supply themselves? Because, and by the way, they even own the coal that we buy. These are the suppliers of coal. So they would have that. But I also articulated that there are also constraints that are current and that we anticipate that in due course they will dissipate. I challenge you now to find a mine manager who is prepared to sign 300 souls 3 kilometers deep into the bosom of the earth with a ventilation system that is based on renewable energy and or lithium batteries that is supported by lithium batteries or vanadium batteries. You will be hard pressed to find such a person because the technology at this stage, it is not yet commercially viable, not yet technically viable at that scale, and it is not yet proven. But we also acknowledge that at some levels of our customers, that the issue of PVs becomes an alternative, a viable alternative that they consider. And we've indicated about our own calculations about the penetration rate that is happening there. In tandem with that point, I said that then brings ESCOM, that ESCOM must begin to reflect the tariff structure that ESCOM issues to its customers must begin to reflect the cost component associated with providing the service to them, the cost structure. Because it's not only energy. Traditionally, we just give you a volumetric tariff. So we charge you for the energy. If you are not paying for your energy, then you don't have any material cost associated with it. I'm talking at the household level. But because you can have now energy output on your own, for your own at a small scale, then we have to, the tariff needs to reflect the overall composition of the service that actually ESCOM provides. Otherwise, we have a situation where higher LSMs get PVs and they get partially tied to the grid and they get subsidized by those who remain wholly on the grid. That was my suggestion. Thank you.
In terms of the generation performance of the EAF, I think we need to look at it into the context of prudency. And in terms of prudency, we look at the context of the situation in the history. As we've submitted before, the root cause is many years, over 10 years of running in the red zone, running these plants extra hard because of a late decision to allow us to build new capacity. Yes, there are issues, but that is the root cause. Now, in terms of what we're projecting going forward, our current performance year to date is 71.5%. Okay? We are projecting slightly lower, 70.4 as a year-end projection, but we have the 9-point plan in place that we are hoping will help us turn that around and improve performance. So the 71.5, the 72.5, the 73.5 in our changed production plan, that's our best estimate. We can only make a best estimate and acknowledge there is a cone of uncertainty around that. And as I understand, that's why we have an RCA process. Now, in terms of bringing the units that are in reserve storage, I just want to emphasize reserve storage, cold reserve is something quite different. Reserve storage, these units are under our latest assumptions, those units will take at least 12 months to come back, which is why we've taken them out of the regulatory asset base. There are 2 units that are in extended inoperability. That's Duval Unit 3, which we all know about, and in Unit 3, and then we're looking in both cases in the region of 4 years with the latest assumptions to come back. Okay. Now, we are not doing anything about it. We have the 9-point plan in place to turn our performance around. In terms of the units that have been shut down, and we intend shutting down, in terms of Mr. Serrano's question about the OPEX, that was taken into account in the application. So there are no changes that we intend making that. So the OPEX has already been reduced there. And in terms of all the changes in assumptions in the new production plan, we have highlighted those, the key ones in terms of the generation performance, the change of dates of the new build, and elsewhere in the sales forecast. So those are things that we can, if you like, we can give those in a consolidated format for all the changes. Okay.
Chair, I'll just deal first with the question regarding the plant size and the generation, the price of ESCOM generation compared to the United States entire car industry that we used in that benchmarking. Our information on if we average the entire United States coal-fired electricity generation in the industry, the average size per unit is about 360 megawatts per unit size, compared to if you look for ESCOM, 420, 420. So 100% correct. ESCOM does have slightly larger unit sizes, 420 compared to about 360. And as we show on the comparison with the United States, we are slightly higher or better in terms of megawatts of plant per single employee. They are at 3.38, ESCOM is at about 3.46. But the point was that the World Bank report in that analysis of optimum staffing assumed close to 20 megawatts per plant. So, Chairman, just to get to the future price path. Yes, the 2009 future price path assumptions, many of them have not materialized. The future price path of 2009 did not know of in 2003. They have since been implemented and has pushed up its cost base quite better. The bottom boundary of the future price path, for the bottom boundary, Nersa has assumed on top of the 60 billion that government agreed to ESCOM as a loan at the time, that government will make a further 100 billion equity injection, which is also not materialized. So yes, would be very useful to have a regular update on the future price path. In fact, the electricity pricing policy of government, paragraph 2.8, requires that Nersa should publish a 10-year future price path on an annual basis. We don't know what that has happened. However, the recent IRP, in effect, did do that for us. The recent IRP, just prior to the graph on future prices for various scenarios, they state that they calculated that those price paths need put a line in a way that is aligned to Nersa's methodology. So they actually applied the methodology and calculated that price path on the same methodology. And that methodology, if it's fully implemented, makes sense because it also gives effect to the requirements of the Electricity Regulation Act in terms of allowing efficient costs and a reasonable return to be used in calculating the electricity price. So in addition to the IRP, there is a recent calculation of the future price path using current assumptions, current costs, current state of the economy, etc. We also see that the World Bank, the more recent exercise, the World Bank states in the document that at efficient benchmark under oath presented to ESCOM at public meetings for MYPD 3, after for both of those include proper financial models, building financial models with which they analyze ESCOM's application. So if a new future price path is built now, that adheres to the Electricity Regulation Act requirements of efficient cost and reasonable returns, it is likely that if anything, it would be higher. But ESCOM has shown us in MYPD 4 rating application that it still anticipates achieving cost effectivity on building and efficient costs in roughly the middle of that price code. So ESCOM is not ignoring changes in market conditions. The point is only that not only ESCOM, but every credible external benchmark from every energy expert that is available show that it is simply not possible to generate, transmit, and distribute electricity at 90 South African cents or about 6.5 US cents a kilowatt hour. So regarding the IRP, we did not say that it's irrelevant. We said that if it was true that no industrial consumer could tolerate more than ESCOM's current 90 cents or 6.5 US cents per kilowatt hour, then it would make the IRP totally academic, given that the IRP price path, the lowest point of the IRP price path, is above, slightly above, Nersa's bottom boundary of the price cap, after which ESCOM will achieve after 3 times a 15% normal increase deemed the hierarchy to actually be very relevant as an indication of the future price path.
Chairperson, there was a question from Mr. Foley and Mr. Medicio. There is a decrease in sales, but why is there not a corresponding decrease in the primary energy cost? Chairperson, my response is in relation to slide 16 and 45, which shows the volumes as well as the rand. But if I can summarize, there is a decrease in sales volumes. There is also a decrease in the EAF. The impact of the both of the two is that there is a decrease in your coal costs. However, this is offset by the ESCOM OCGT cost and the RTP OCGT cost. Slide 45 shows that, but if you want, we can expand the different categories further to show you all the different movement.
I just want to respond to one question about using recent projections on sales. As part of the RCA, maybe just the background around that is, I know RCA is separate from the MYPD methodology, but once the MYPD decision is taken around the sales and the revenue, that becomes a fixed component in the following process, which is the annual price increase adjustment. So if you go into MYPD methodology, and you get, where the forecast is always a difficult one, and as you move forward in this, in MYPD3 is a learning point. The sales came down and down over 5 years. But when you calculate the annual increase, the RCA methodology forces Eskom to use the MYPD decision of sales in that. So that means that under recovery of revenue that's being created is now just getting worse and worse as the period continues. So our suggestion there is, let's look at some other thing to bring more certainty over the stability over the period is that when you calculate it, that you must probably use your most accurate forecast, and you can have, there can be criteria around that developed. Use that instead of sticking to the decision if you know it's completely wrong and it's not under recovery.
Chairperson, let me deal with some of the other questions. I think the one around STPPs versus OCGTs in the updated production plan, as we said, it will take longer than 6 months to conclude for year 1 of MYPD4. But when we look at the requirement based on the assumptions that we have in terms of the technical assumptions, we're saying the cost to bring back those units will far outweigh the cost of additional OCGTs. Chairperson, let me deal with all the RCA related questions. The one question from Mr. Modise is a 15% drop in sales volume, why isn't there the 15% drop in variable costs? And effectively it comes down what was the assumed rate for production costs at the time of decision and what was actually incurred during year 5. And as part of the process, Chairperson, that difference between the rate of decision time and natural mode, which is subject to prudency, is part of the RCA process. You don't necessarily have a situation where they'll remain exactly the same as was assumed at decision time. Maybe the second question on RCA's overall, Mr. Bundisia asked, now that you've got the decision that was published in December, because we submitted before the detailed decision, will Eskom change its application? Chairperson, we believe our previous RCA submissions is consistent with the methodology. By implication, we are saying that certain reasons in the detailed reasons for year 2, 3, and 4, Eskom does not agree with the regulator, Chairperson, from an RCA perspective. In terms of the fraud stuff, we have submitted detail to the regulator on the investigations. The issue around this principle of what do you take into account doesn't exist in the methodology at the moment. Chairperson, they'll have to think about that item. Maybe the other issue just on STPP as well we did understand that in the RCA decision for year 5, the SCPP that Eskom applied for in our RCA application was totally disallowed. So we would need to understand the reasons for that, as it was approved before we entered into those contracts. So I think we need to understand that as well. And let me let some of my colleagues talk and I'll come back.
And Chairperson, there was a question about the growth scenarios that we have on our alternatives, the rate of penetration of the alternatives. I think it was asked by Mr. Mkizi. We can provide the studies, the reports that relate to that if so required. And there's an issue as well about the own price elasticity and the cost price elasticity. I think that ties up quite nicely with that. To say that the point that I was trying to make at least is to indicate that the limitations on the suitability, at least at this point, of these alternatives, and therefore the limitations that actually that impede on the cost price elasticity component that comes into play. I think just to put it into perspective, if my memory is in 2010, IRP 2010, we were estimating that an embedded self-generation would be up to 7,000 megawatts by 2018, which is last year. According to our own research at this point, we are no more than 500 megawatts at that point. If you put it into context with the Eskom's total installed capacity of 4,000, that goes to show the point that I was referring to earlier when we talked about the state, about how unavailable the alternatives are and how viable they are. Another question was asked to say, are customers, when we do an analysis of this sort, when we give them a price, what is the reaction? Well, for the most part, the reaction would be that it is unaffordable for them, that it would be an expensive exercise for them to undertake. And yes, people would threaten to defect from the grid. I think that is a natural response. Exhibit A is myself, that I have considered having solar PVs in my house. What is the commercial viability of that? But until you start doing the rents and cents of it, and then you realize that no, actually it is not viable, given my consumption patterns, given what I need. Because there's a point that we make. When we say people are defecting from the grid, for the most part, people are not closing down the breakers and calling it a day. People are still tied to our grid. And so they have solar PV when it is convenient for them, when it is available. That's the problem with it. It is not available on demand. So when it is not available, then they tie back on the Eskom grid, and that is an implied subsidy.
Please wrap up. We've got the question on the issue of availability of other sources. So if you can wrap up.
Okay, so that is the point there. And then the other point was on the issue about the inadequate security of supply. That yes, that is, in our view, that is the primary driving factor that our customers, especially the large scale customers, high load customers, consider that it should be reliable, it should be called upon, and it should be stable. Immediately when we start fiddling with that aspect, that is when, for the most part, our customers will be most disturbed.
There was one question from Mr. Mkizi about which units were not included in the production plan and which were. Just to confirm that in the production plan, in the application, there were a few units that are currently, when the application was done, were not operational. These were not included. But then the production plan showed that at various times in the 3-year period that the units from Midrand and Komati would not be required. So that's why the capex was taken out and OPEX reduced. In our changed assumptions, the units that are currently out were excluded from the calculations in the production plan. That's the 12 units, do the 3 plus 11 other units. Then an additional 12 units from those 3 stations will be coming off, or expected to be coming off, in the MYPD4 period. Those are excluded from the time they come out in the production plan. Thank you.
Chairperson, to wrap up some of the other questions, Mr. Foley asked about the difference between the revenue, the income statement, and the revenue requirement formula. We provide the detailed recon, but effectively it's linked to connection fees and cash upfront from consumers that gives you that slight difference. On the IPPs, Mr. Foley, the amount we're disclosing in our numbers is the total IPP cost. So yes, you can split it between the already existing contracts and the ones that come online over this period, which we can do and provide to the regulator. The other question around that the chairperson raised around the income statement and the profits and the loss, the Eskom is admitting to something. Maybe I didn't interpret the question correctly, but the information we're presenting there is just in an income statement format. It was in our application around all the different components. We were just presenting it in an income statement format from that perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kassim. If I can just, the things that need to happen, just to confirm, starting with the last one. On the last one, I was talking merely about when we do the evidence analysis using the SNP test, where I say that SNP test will be used, one, for estimating the elasticity of demand facing Eskom. So if the price increases and the demand for Eskom or the sales volumes come down, that is one evidence. The second evidence, economic evidence that will be required, is the sales loss analysis. And then the third one, that sales loss analysis, it is linked to profitability, to profit. If then, as a result of the increase, Eskom did not become profitable and a certain percentage, all of that is part of the economic analysis that will then result in economic evidence that we think that is required. So your question was whether it will be Eskom will oppose to Nersa when you already state that for the next 2 years, Eskom will not be profitable. So if that is linked to the demand, but you don't have to answer it now, you can answer it in your response tomorrow. That is still fine. But as long as from the evidence, economic evidence that is presented, not only from Eskom, also independently obtained by Nersa, if it affects the demand, it affects the sales, then it will be checked whether that profitability is as a result of the price increase and the sales. That's how it will be packaged, the economic analysis. And then just to confirm information that we requested from Eskom, the estimate of the extent of price increase on the demand, on Eskom's demand, not the other variables, on Eskom's demand and sales volume as a result of the increase. Secondly, the extent of the substitutability as a result of the price increase, and also it is linked to the issue of that issue of profitability that I was talking about. I just explained it. And the other one, also the sales loss analysis and also evidence from customers on questions, economic questions that were put to them regarding the increase of 15% and the other increase that customers are going to experience. And then the other question that we requested is the concrete plan to fix the deterioration of the plant performance, especially in light of the poor quality maintenance and the inadequate maintenance that is being done, so that we can see how this EAF or the energy availability factor will be improved if maintenance is not properly conducted. So we want those questions to be properly linked. The other one, this one relates to the RCA, and we've already asked that question, is the evidence of price increase and substitutability on Eskom's demand sales volumes with the sales variance ESCOM did not provide us with information showing how the price increase affected its sales volume and the demand for the RCA. We've asked that question already to test the price sensitivity, so that ESCOM provide us their own information. The other question that we did not respond to is the one that we said, if you could demonstrate how you estimated the value of those assets that you have now taken out of the RAB, so that we can see how you arrived at that figure. So you have not provided us with that information. The other question that you did not respond to relates to the RAB valuation, where we had said that in your application you did not show the efficiency and performance standard when you evaluated the RAB. So we did not see any information there and facts on the efficiency as well as the performance standard, especially even with the new build. If now the new build is they're suffering a major failures and defects that will also require money not only on operational level but also to fix some of those major defects. ESCOM could provide us with that info. So that one is quite important as well for the RAB, but not only for the RAB but the EAF as well. So that's the specific information that did not come through. Mr. Nkese has two.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for the responses, and I think it's clear as to what you need to do going forward. Slide 45, that response, please ask them to reflect on the changes in the various line items. And secondly, please just revisit the MYPD framework decision and use what is plausible, just to indicate what is plausible instead of just being forced to say that it will make that make sense. Thank you.
Mr. Fu?
Thanks, Chief. If you just confirm that it's now can send us the information about the primary energy. And then just on the sales forecast, it was stated that you used the budget I think process, budget quotation process, and those are confirmed projects. I think we'd also like to know is what is your due diligence that you do, because obviously in the past there's a number that haven't or don't materialize. Are there any penalties for